So, a long, long, long time ago, I was 20. I worked at the UNICEF office in New Delhi as one of the many internships I found myself bored in during my year between studying my undergrad degree and going to study autism in New York at Columbia. My parents are paying a lot of money for this master's degree I was going to get at Columbia, especially if you factored in the Indian rupees to the US dollar jump we had to make. To me, this meant I had to hustle my way by earning some money, doing some odd jobs, rid myself of this self created burden of asking my parents for too much. The cool part about UNICEF was they held a donation drive every December around Christmas. I stood at this Christmas market drive, manning a table with a few last people trickling in towards the end. When it was time to shut down, there was still left a pair of shiny red gold shoes with a Nike swoosh on them. When no one was looking, I snuck them in my bag, took them home. My brother laughed at me. These are football shoes, you idiot. Cleats with spokes in their soles to get a better grip of the pitch. You can't just walk in them on streets. People will think you're weird. I asked him, how do you spell cleats? I heard CLEATS. I added that to my list of things to pack in my New York bag, and off they were to the Big Apple with me. My second apartment in New York was in Harlem. I hadn't read anything about Black history by now to understand the fear in my American family's eyes at the mention of me living in Harlem. I saw an apprehension in them when I found the perfect one bedroom apartment of Frederick Douglass on 111th and East Harlem. Once the locks were double checked by my family and the neighbors were well scrutinized, I was allowed to move into my new flat. At a 15-minute walk to the Teachers College campus of Columbia University, which I, as if I was pole vaulting, made in my Nike red cleats with the golden swoosh. Besides the spokes at the bottom, they were also a size too big, so I wore my thick socks to ensure the shoes don't slip off. The teenagers, rather tall ones who played on my street in Harlem, often shouted out, "Lady, whose throat are you going to pierce with those cleats of yours?" I wasn't sure what would be an appropriate response to that question, so I smiled and very matter of factly replied, "Nobody's. I work 4 jobs and study a full time course. The only throat I want to pierce right now is my own." They throw the ball at me. I wasn't sure if they were teasing me, flirting with me, or they wanted me to catch it. I went with the least conflict provoking response by kicking the ball back at them each time I found it aimed at me. One time I smiled and asked a tall boy from this Harlem gang, "Will you teach me how to play football?" He kneeled as if to tie his shoelaces, looked into my eyes, slowly licked his lips, and under his breath whispered, "What would you like to teach me in return if I taught you how to play football?" Out of a possible naivety, or maybe just fear, I quickly spat out, "I'm a teacher. I work with kids with autism. I've found myself 4 jobs around here. I could help you with high school stuff or help you figure jobs if you're looking to earn some more money on the side." His friends laughed. They threw their ball at him this time. He blushed. He tied my shoelaces instead, really tight. He extended his arms from below in my direction, urging me to give him a high five. "Welcome to Harlem, lady." Sorry about my cat. "Welcome to Harlem, lady. Will you teach me English literature, math, basically just anything? I hate school, so anything I can do to pass, get out of this motherfucking place." I said, "I'm Devangana, by the way. You can call me D." "Or all of you," I said as I peeked behind the tall boy and his friends. "I don't know much about high school, you guys. Uh, I don't know much about New York, but sure, I can try and help you in whatever way I can." This group of boys, they must be 15 or 16 years at the oldest, looked a lot older than Indian men at that age. They gave me double high fives, chanted D, 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 like a football chant or something. And I had my first set of real friends in Harlem. I worked at a rich school nearby for 8 months before this. While I was there, I often snuck muffins, bagels, baguettes, whatever I could get in my bag from the breakfast buffet. I'd carry them back to my flat for my roommate and some for my Harlem crew who hung around Frederick Douglass around the same time each night. I told these boys about India, my family. I showed them pictures from my hometown in Jaipur. They asked me if we moved around town on elephants or horses. How did the people get around there? I showed them pictures of my home, of the busy streets with every car you could possibly imagine. I showed them pictures of my friends who looked a lot like their friends. They shared with me empanadas. They taught me how to dig into chicken wings. Lick your fingers like a lady, they said. The tall boy would smile and tell me when we sat on the stairway to my building, you'd make a cool girl. New York takes you by the wings, not by the ones that you heat with hot sauce, but the real kind. New York makes you fly, cuts your wings off without a warning, and then just watches you fall. I was soon going to parties at the Ganserwood, getting invited to Hotel O for galas, cozying up in little wine bars, sipping on dirty martinis made the signature Manhattan way, of course. I was wrapping my body in delicate chiffon dresses underneath my Queen Sunday Fleet Market's trench coat. I was throwing lavish fondue parties at home, wearing knee length fake leather boots instead of my red cleats with a golden swoosh. In the madness and magic of New York, one night after a big quarrel at a bar, where I drunkenly flirted with one too many men, kissed another one, I walked out to text my roommate about the mess I'd landed myself in. I sat on the stairway, tucked by the Fat Baby bar near up in the Lower East Side. I barely remember making my way up the stairs from Fat Baby. I pulled out my phone. I think I typed a text. I was sitting on the stairway. I just have a faint recollection of all of this. The next thing I knew, I woke up in a bed under a sharp spotlight with a group of 6 people who I think were doctors. They were examining me with scalpels and gloves, asking me where I was. I said, Jaipur. They asked me why was I in Jaipur. I said, I live with my grandparents in Jaipur. I closed my eyes. I put my head in my grandmom's lap. I lovingly called her Amma a few times. I said, Amma, I'm finally home. I'm here with you. And I slept a really long sleep. After a week in the neurological ICU, a few days recovering from my broken cheekbone, a broken hand, a fractured knee, a hemorrhage in my brain, a few friends and the nurses and doctors there, a new crush on the new resident at St. Luke's Hospital, I was released on account of being a medical miracle. I'd survived. I wore my big red sunglasses, pretended to be a pirate for a day or two while tripping on morphine before I broke down. This was a lot. My parents couldn't have made it all the way to New York when this happened, but while I was in the hospital, my family of 30 who lived in New Jersey had decided New York wasn't the right place for me. I must return home, back to my parents. A part of me really wanted to be back in my parents' bed, be back with my high school best friends, but a part of me had fallen in love with New York. A part of me was still beating, fluttering, dreaming, even with one eye shut, leaping out, looking at the stars, talking to the sky. 3 days of playing pirate, and then came Sunday night. I knew I'd celebrated my miraculous survival enough. I was broken, lonely, sadder than what I'd ever been, confused, scared about speaking up, scared about staying, scared about stepping outside of my flat. I was just really scared of everything. In my early days in New York, I'd often find myself in Morningside Park. It was close to my apartment, it was quiet. I just went and sat there and looked at the stars. I wore my big gray sweatshirt this Sunday night, got into my red cleats with a golden swoosh. With my one functional arm, two barely functional legs, with my broken face, I hobbled my way to Morningside Park. I lay on the basketball court. Sitting on a bench with a broken body would be too painful. Tears streamed down my cheeks. I checked my broken eye to see if the ducts were still intact. Thankfully, they were. I cried from both my eyes this time. First a little softly, in whimpers, but soon it turned into an ugly, loud howl, as if my intestines had given way, split open to release this loud howl. I sobered down a little while after, must have been 15 or 20 minutes. I looked to the right towards my broken side and found the tall boy from from the Harlem gang lying by me. He asked me, Did your man hit you? I shrugged. I said, I don't know. I was just so drunk, I don't remember who it was. What it was, I don't know what happened. He pulled his sleeve and his sweatshirt up. He showed me his arm. It had horizontal scars all the way up his inner arm. He said, I have these on my other arm also. Would you like to see those? My legs also. My chest D, that's another story. I use that for drugs. I was 21, naive, unexposed to this side of life. I'd never seen something like this. Never something like this before. He told me, when my father hits my mother, he does that quite often. I try to stop him. He threatens to rape me, kill me. I tell him I'd rather die myself than let that cunt kill me. I've tried for years to kill myself. I just don't die. I just never die. We lay silently for a few moments under the star that night. He then stood up. He gave me his hand. Let me teach you how you just need one hand, just one arm to shoot a basketball. It's really easy, I promise you. I'll teach you how to put this one arm to some good use. Thank you.